When you grow old, I ditched life goals after witnessing this shocking reality. As we age, life seems to reveal its truths with striking clarity. It often takes a jarring moment, a wake-up call, to make us pause and reflect on the road ahead. For me, that moment came unexpectedly during a quiet holiday in Portugal. It was a sunny afternoon, the kind where life feels almost effortless, but what I witnessed that day changed my perspective on everything I thought I knew about goals, purpose, and the time we have left. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. 1. A shocking encounter with mortality. There are moments in life so raw, so unexpected, that they shake you to your core. These moments force you to look at yourself, your choices, and the fleeting nature of life itself. For me, that moment arrived on what seemed like an ordinary day, a sunny afternoon in Portugal, where the skies were clear and the world felt calm. But life, as it so often does, had a different plan. It started with a noise, a sound I couldn't quite place. At first, I dismissed it, imagining it was my neighbor, perhaps exercising or moving something heavy. He was a man I barely knew, yet his presence was a constant during my holiday visits to Portugal. We had exchanged polite nods, shared a Happy New Year across our respective balconies, but never more than that. That afternoon, as the noise turned into cries, I realized something was wrong. His wife's panicked voice cut through the air, followed by the hurried arrival of paramedics. I watched helplessly from my balcony as they surrounded him, desperately trying to revive him. The scene was surreal, a life slipping away on a beautiful day, in a beautiful place, and then, silence. He was gone. I had seen death before. I was by my father's side when he passed. This was different. This was sudden, unplanned, and unrelenting. One moment this man was alive, and the next, he wasn't. It struck me deeply, not because I knew him well, but because his death felt so arbitrary, so close. It was a stark reminder that none of us knows how much time we have. As I stood there, frozen by the reality unfolding in front of me, a thought began to form, that could have been me. When I returned home, that thought refused to leave me. It haunted me during quiet moments and whispered to me when I tried to sleep. It wasn't just about his death, it was about what it represented, the fragility of life, the randomness of it all, the way we often live as though we have all the time in the world, when in truth, we don't. I began to question everything. How had I been spending my time? Was I truly living, or was I simply existing? The man who died that day had been on vacation, likely looking forward to the same things I was: relaxation, renewal, perhaps even a sense of escape. But his story ended abruptly, and it made me wonder, was I writing my own story with the care it deserved? That moment, as painful and unsettling as it was, became a turning point. It forced me to confront my own mortality and ask the hard questions I'd been avoiding. What would I do with the time I had left? How could I ensure that, whenever my end came, I wouldn't look back with regret? The death of a near stranger reminded me of a truth we all know but rarely act upon: life is precious, and it is fragile. It is not something to be endured or postponed. It is something to be embraced fully and without hesitation. This experience didn't just change my perspective, it changed my life. It pushed me to let go of the trivial and focus on what truly mattered. It taught me that the greatest tragedy isn't death itself, but the failure to live fully in the time we are given. That man's death was a wake-up call, not just for me, but I hope for anyone who hears this story. It is a reminder that life's fragility is not something to fear, but something to honor. It is a call to live intentionally, to cherish each moment, and to never take for granted the time we have. 2. Facing the reality of time. Time is a paradox. When we are young, it feels infinite, stretching endlessly before us, ripe with possibilities. As we age, the illusion fades, and we begin to see time for what it truly is: fleeting, finite, and utterly unforgiving. Witnessing my neighbor's death on that quiet afternoon in Portugal shattered whatever illusions I still clung to about my own time. It brought me face to face with a reality I could no longer ignore: that could have been me. Those words echoed in my mind as I flew back home. They weren't just a fleeting thought, they were a weight I carried with me, pressing on my chest with every passing day. I couldn't stop thinking about how his life had ended so suddenly, so unexpectedly, and what that meant for me. What if my time came tomorrow, next month, next year? How much of my life had I spent waiting for someday, assuming that my story still had chapters left to write? For years, I had lived under the comfortable assumption that I would make it well into my 80s. After all, I had an uncle who was 94, still sharp and full of stories to tell. Why wouldn't I have the same luck? But as I sat with the memory of that man, lifeless on the balcony next door, I realized how dangerous those assumptions could be. My father had died at 74. If I were to follow in his footsteps, I would have barely more than a decade left. The thought was sobering, not because it scared me, but because it forced me to reevaluate everything. Time is not promised, it doesn't owe us anything, and it doesn't care about our plans. The only certainty is the moment we are living right now. I thought about the years I had already lived, the choices I had made, the paths I had taken, and I wondered, had I spent them well? The answer was complicated. I had built a successful business and sold it. I had explored new ventures, taken on consulting roles, and tried to share my knowledge in various ways. But in truth, I had been drifting. I had spent so much time chasing external goals that I had lost sight of what truly mattered to me. The death I witnessed wasn't just a reminder of life's fragility, it was a call to action. It was a nudge, a forceful, undeniable nudge that told me it was time to stop waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the right opportunity, waiting for the future. The future isn't guaranteed. The only thing we can count on is now. I realized that my relationship with time had to change. It wasn't enough to simply acknowledge its passing, I had to honor it. That meant living with intention, not just letting the days blur together into a haze of routine and obligation. It meant asking myself every single day, what will I do with the time I have left? This wasn't about panic or fear. It wasn't about rushing to cram as much as possible into whatever years I might have left. It was about clarity. It was about stripping away the distractions and focusing on what truly mattered. For me, that meant letting go of the idea that life is a series of endless tomorrows. It meant seeing each day as a gift, not a guarantee. It meant choosing to live, not for the distant future, but for the here and now. I began to think about my life in chapters. If each chapter lasts about 7 years, as I've always believed, how many chapters did I realistically have left? 3 if I made it to my 80s, 4 if I was lucky. But what if I only had 1? What if I didn't even have that? These questions weren't meant to be morbid, they were meant to be liberating. By acknowledging the limits of time, I felt a renewed sense of urgency, not to achieve more, but to live more. To live with purpose, to connect with the people I loved, and to make peace with the things that truly mattered. Time is a teacher, but it is also a thief. It gives us the wisdom to understand life's value, but it takes from us the days and years we thought we had. The lesson, then, is to make those days count. To see time not as an enemy, but as a companion, a quiet reminder to cherish each moment, each breath, each sunrise. I don't know how much time I have left, and neither do you. But what I do know is this: the time we have is enough, if we choose to make it so. It is enough to love deeply, to live fully, and to leave behind a legacy of meaning and connection. It is enough to embrace the life we have right now, and to make the most of the chapters still unwritten. If witnessing my neighbor's death taught me anything, it's this: time waits for no one, so let's not wait either. Let's face the reality of time, not with fear, but with gratitude for the days we've been given, and the chance we still have to make them count. 3. Changing life direction. Sometimes, it takes a profound jolt to realize that the road you've been traveling isn't leading where you want to go. For me, that realization came in the wake of witnessing my neighbor's sudden death. It wasn't just the tragedy of his passing that struck me, it was the clarity it gave me about my own life. I had been moving, yes, but was I moving in the right direction? Was I living a life that truly reflected who I was and what I cared about? For most of my life, I'd been driven by ambition. I built a business from the ground up, guided it to success, and eventually sold it. By many measures, I had achieved what society would call the dream. But after the dust settled, I found myself wandering through a series of ventures that felt hollow. I tried business coaching, consulting, advisory roles, even starting a CEO peer group. Each of these pursuits seemed logical, given my experience and knowledge, but none of them lit a fire in my soul. What I didn't realize at the time was that I had been searching for something deeper. I thought I was looking for the next professional challenge, but in truth, I was looking for meaning. And it wasn't until I witnessed that man's death that I finally understood the urgency of my search. When you're faced with the stark reality of mortality, your priorities have a way of snapping into focus. Watching my neighbor's life end so abruptly, so unpredictably, forced me to ask myself, if my time came tomorrow, what would I regret? What would I wish I had done differently? The answers weren't about achieving more or earning more, they were about living more authentically, sharing more openly, and finding a way to make my experiences count for something greater than myself. I began to think about the knowledge I had accumulated over the years. It wasn't just about business strategies or leadership principles, it was about the human journey, the ups and downs of midlife, and the unique challenges and opportunities that come with aging. These were the lessons I wanted to share, not as an expert preaching from a pedestal, but as a fellow traveler navigating the same terrain. The more I reflected, the more I realized that my life's direction didn't need to be about what I had achieved, but about what I could give. And so, I decided to shift my focus entirely. Instead of chasing goals that didn't resonate, I chose to start something new, a YouTube channel where I could speak directly to people like me, men and women in their 50s, 60s, and beyond, who were searching for purpose and clarity in the second half of life. It wasn't an easy decision. Starting something from scratch at this stage of life felt daunting, even risky. But it also felt right. For the first time in years, I wasn't just following a career path, I was following my heart. This shift was not just about creating content, it was about creating connection. I wanted to share my story and my insights, not to impress or instruct, but to inspire, to remind others that it's never too late to change direction, to rediscover what matters, and to live with intention. The truth is, many of us drift through life, especially as we get older. We fall into routines, we settle into habits, and we convince ourselves that our best days are behind us. But they're not. If anything, the later years of life are an opportunity, a chance to rewrite the script, to embrace a new chapter, and to find fulfillment in ways we never imagined. Changing direction doesn't mean abandoning the past, it means building on it, using the lessons we've learned to guide us toward a future that feels authentic and alive. For me, that meant letting go of the need to prove myself through work, and instead focusing on creating something meaningful. When I look back now, I see how every experience I've had, every success, every failure, every moment of doubt, has led me to this point. Witnessing my neighbor's death was a turning point, yes, but it wasn't the whole story. It was the spark that ignited a deeper understanding of what I wanted my life to be about. Changing direction is not always easy, especially when you've been traveling the same road for so long. But it's worth it. Because at the end of the day, the most important question isn't, what have I accomplished? It's, how have I lived? If you're reading this and feeling stuck, I want you to know that it's never too late. Whether you're 65 or 85, you have the power to change direction. You have the power to create a life that reflects your values, your passions, and your truth. All it takes is the courage to take that first step and the willingness to embrace the unknown. For me, that first step was starting a YouTube channel. For you, it might be something entirely different. But whatever it is, know that the direction you choose today can shape the legacy you leave tomorrow. And that, my friend, is a journey worth taking. 4. Life is a series of chapters. Life, when you really stop to think about it, is like a book. Each chapter represents a phase of growth, learning, and living, a series of moments that build upon one another to form the narrative of who we are. But unlike the books we read, we don't know how many chapters our own story will have. That uncertainty is both a gift and a challenge. For years, I believed that each chapter of life lasted about 7 years. It was a framework that made sense to me, a way to measure time and mark transitions. But as I approached my 63rd year, the weight of this concept became heavier. If life truly unfolds in chapters, then how many did I have left? 3 if I was lucky, 4 if the stars aligned. But what if I only had one? These questions weren't just theoretical, they were deeply personal and profoundly sobering. Thinking of life in chapters forced me to confront not just the quantity of my time, but the quality. What would I fill these remaining chapters with? Would I drift, letting days blend into weeks and years? Or would I take the pen into my own hands and write something meaningful? The idea of chapters also brought me a sense of hope. It reminded me that no matter what had come before, I had the power to start fresh. Every chapter, after all, is an opportunity, a blank page waiting to be written. Even if the previous chapters were filled with mistakes or missed opportunities, the next one could be different. But hope without action is just a dream. I realized that if I wanted the next chapter of my life to be meaningful, I had to approach it with intention. It wasn't enough to let life happen to me, I had to actively shape it. That meant asking myself hard questions about what truly mattered, what I wanted to leave behind, and what I hoped to carry forward. For me, the answers were clear. I wanted this chapter to be about connection, contribution, and clarity. I wanted to focus on the people I loved, the lessons I had learned, and the legacy I hoped to leave. Above all, I wanted to live in a way that honored the time I had left, not with fear, but with gratitude and purpose. Thinking of life as a series of chapters is a powerful perspective, one that I hope you'll consider for your own journey. Each chapter is a chance to start anew, to build on the past while embracing the future. The number of chapters we have may be uncertain, but the meaning we bring to them is entirely up to us. 5. Adopting anti-goals. For most of my life, I had been driven by goals. Like many people, I believed that setting specific, measurable objectives was the key to success and fulfillment. Build a business, grow my wealth, travel to new places. These goals gave me direction. But as I grew older, I began to question whether they truly brought me happiness. It wasn't until I stumbled upon the concept of anti-goals that my perspective shifted. Unlike traditional goals, which focus on what you want to achieve, anti-goals center on what you want to avoid. It's a subtle but profound difference, one that changed the way I approached the later years of my life. The idea is simple. Instead of asking, "What do I want to accomplish?" you ask, "What do I want to eliminate from my life?" For me, this question led to a series of powerful realizations. I didn't want to spend my days glued to a television screen, wasting hours on passive entertainment. So I made a commitment to explore the world, to visit new places, and to immerse myself in the beauty of nature. I didn't want to be surrounded by clutter, physical or emotional. So I began the process of decluttering my life, letting go of possessions I no longer needed and relationships that no longer served me. I didn't want to lose touch with the people I loved, especially my son. So I prioritized time with him, inviting him on family trips, and making regular visits to his home. By focusing on what I didn't want, I created space for what truly mattered. This approach gave me clarity and peace, allowing me to live with greater intention and less regret. Anti-goals aren't about settling or giving up. They're about redefining success in a way that aligns with your values and priorities. They're about letting go of the noise and distractions that pull you away from what's truly important. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the pressures of traditional goal setting, I encourage you to try this approach. Ask yourself, what don't I want in my life? What can I let go of to make room for joy, connection, and purpose? You might be surprised by how liberating it feels to focus on what truly matters, and how much easier it becomes to live a life that reflects your deepest values. For me, adopting anti-goals was not just a strategy, it was a revelation. It helped me see that sometimes the best way to move forward is to let go of what's holding you back. 6. The gift of perspective. Perspective is one of life's most profound gifts. It has the power to transform the way we see the world, to shift our focus from what's trivial to what truly matters. Yet perspective often comes to us in moments of great joy or deep sorrow, those rare, defining experiences that jolt us out of our routine and force us to see life in a new light. For me, that gift arrived unexpectedly, wrapped in the tragedy of witnessing my neighbor's death. At first, the shock of that moment was overwhelming. Seeing a life end so abruptly, so unpredictably, shook me to my core. But as the days passed and the initial wave of emotions began to settle, I found myself reflecting on what that experience had taught me. It wasn't just a reminder of life's fragility, though that lesson was undeniable. It was also an invitation, a call to reevaluate my own life, my choices, and the legacy I hope to leave behind. Witnessing my neighbor's death forced me to confront questions I had long avoided. What am I doing with the time I have left? Am I living in alignment with my values, or am I simply going through the motions, waiting for a future that isn't guaranteed? These were not easy questions to face, but they were necessary. They became the lens through which I began to see my life, not as a series of endless days, but as a finite and precious journey. The perspective I gained wasn't about fear, it was about clarity. It reminded me that life isn't measured by the number of years we live, but by the depth of meaning we bring to those years. It's not about how much we accumulate, achieve, or accomplish, but about how fully we embrace each moment and how deeply we connect with the people we love. This newfound perspective also helped me let go of the illusion of control. For much of my life, I had clung to the belief that I could plan and prepare my way to a perfect future. But life is unpredictable, and no amount of planning can guarantee the outcomes we desire. My neighbor's death was a stark reminder that the only thing we truly have is the present moment, and in that moment, we have a choice: to live with intention and gratitude, or to let the days slip by unnoticed. As I reflected on this, I realized that perspective is not just a gift, it's a responsibility. It calls us to act, to live in a way that honors the lessons we've learned and the time we've been given. For me, that meant simplifying my life, focusing on what truly mattered, and letting go of what didn't. It meant spending more time with my family, pursuing passions that brought me joy, and sharing my experiences with others in the hope that they too might find clarity and purpose. Perspective also brings with it a sense of urgency, not the frantic rush to do everything at once, but the quiet understanding that time is finite. It encourages us to prioritize, to say yes to what aligns with our values and no to what doesn't. It teaches us to cherish the ordinary moments, the laughter of a loved one, the warmth of the sun on our skin, the stillness of a quiet evening, because these are the moments that make life rich and meaningful. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that perspective is a gift we can choose to accept at any time. You don't have to wait for a tragedy to force you to see life differently. You can start today, right where you are, by asking yourself, what truly matters to me? How can I live in a way that reflects those priorities? These questions, simple as they are, have the power to change everything. The gift of perspective has transformed my life. It has taught me to see each day as an opportunity, each interaction as a chance to connect, and each decision as a step toward a more meaningful existence. And for that, I am deeply grateful. As you reflect on your own journey, I hope you'll embrace this gift as well. Let it guide you, inspire you, and remind you of what's truly important. Life is precious, and though our time may be limited, the impact we can make is boundless. All it takes is the willingness to see things differently, and the courage to live accordingly. A profound closing thought. Life, in all its complexity, is both fleeting and infinite. Fleeting because the time we're given is impossibly brief, a mere flicker in the grand span of existence. Infinite because, within that fleeting time, lies the boundless potential for meaning, connection, and love. The greatest lesson I've learned, and the one I hope to leave with you, is this: our lives are not defined by their length, but by their depth. We are the authors of our own stories. Every choice we make, every relationship we nurture, and every moment we embrace becomes a sentence, a paragraph, a chapter in the book of our lives. Yet, so often, we drift through the pages, waiting for a someday that may never come, unaware that the most profound moments are already unfolding in the present. The death I witnessed, as shocking and painful as it was, taught me an invaluable truth. The time to live is now, not tomorrow, not when the stars align, but now. This moment, however imperfect, is a gift. It is a chance to love more deeply, to act with greater purpose, and to create a life that reflects the truest parts of ourselves. If you take one thing away from this reflection, let it be this: you have the power to shape your story, no matter your age, no matter your past. The pen is still in your hands. Whether you have one chapter left or many, you can choose to fill it with meaning, with joy, and with the courage to live authentically. As we stand at the crossroads of what has been and what is yet to come, let us commit to living with intention. Let us cherish the time we have, however much or little it may be, and let us remember that the greatest legacy we can leave is not in what we accumulate or achieve, but in the love we give, the lives we touch, and the memories we create. The clock is always ticking, but it is not our enemy. It is a reminder, a gentle yet persistent reminder, to live, to truly live. So take a deep breath, look around, and ask yourself, what will I do with the time I have left? Then, with clarity and courage, write the chapter you were always meant to write. Because this is your story, make it one worth telling. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.